Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. At this moment, votes and a plea. The Senate moving to avoid a government shutdown while the Speaker, Mike Johnson, is urging Congress tonight to soon get on a plane. The new fight over the Department of Homeland Security, plus de-escalation and a deadline. The U.S. military telling Iran to tone it down, while the commander-in-chief makes this reveal right here.
Are you giving Iran any kind of deadline to make a deal before potentially taking
Only they know for sure.
Have you communicated that to them?
Yeah, I have.
Also tonight, China's big loss and a win for the U.S. How a new ruling could set the stage for American influence at the Panama Canal and spared by the judge. The accused CEO killer Luigi Mangione will not face the death penalty, why his attorney is now thanking supporters. But first tonight, here from the Hill, we begin with the funding fight over the Department of Homeland Security. At this moment, the Senate voting on a package of bills to fund the government. The Speaker of the House urging lawmakers to get back to town in the coming days. The deal would only partially fund a majority of the government, but for DHS, rather, for 2 weeks. Just DHS for 2 weeks. And that's because Democrats want reforms. Across the country today, scenes like this. Look at those protests, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Protesters engaging in what they call a day of action. And the action in Washington is likely to lead to weeks of negotiations about the future of DHS and ICE.
Apparently, Senate Republicans still support using taxpayer dollars to brutalize American citizens.
If you want to reform ICE, count me in. But if you don't get to the root cause of the problem, then you're really not serious about solving it.
There is movement tonight. Our Joe Khalil is where we begin up on Capitol Hill. Joe K., you've been on the phone all day watching what's going on in the Senate. What's the very latest as we stand here, 6 Eastern?
So you hit the nail on the head there, Blake. Here's what's happening right now, and then bigger picture later. Right now, we are watching as the Senate is going through a series of votes, 7 different amendments. The final vote is really the crucial one. That is the government funding package. 5 different bills together, which, as you point out, funds more than 90% of the government. That is likely going to move forward very soon onto the House Monday, and presumably, if the House passes it quickly, we don't have a government shutdown that lasts more than a weekend and is not very effectual at all. The agreement, as we've been talking about, is that one of those funding bills for Homeland Security is stripped out of it. There's instead just a 2-week short-term funding bill for DHS, so that way things like the Coast Guard or FEMA don't go unfunded. But the bigger question becomes, what's next? With that Homeland Security funding bill, we're already hearing the contours of deals. Blake, as you mentioned, there's going to be a big give and take here. Democrats are making demands about how to change ICE protocol. Republicans, some of them say we can live with some of the proposals Democrats are putting forward. Everyone seems to support things like body cameras, things like one uniform code of rules for engagement in terms of, violent force there. So there are some things that everyone agrees on, but the question is, how much can Republicans accept? Where will they draw the line? And will Democrats go even further, demanding personnel changes, for example? That's where it's going to get tricky. And as Minneapolis continues to develop in and of itself, this conversation here on Capitol Hill only gets all the more complicated, Blake. So right now we're facing a very short-term shutdown over the weekend. The House could presumably pick up what the Senate puts down now, and they can handle that relatively quickly.
And we'll see where it all goes happening at this hour. Joe K., live for us in the Capitol hallways. Joe, thank you. Meantime, the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue, President Trump announcing his pick to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. Keven Warsh is a Morgan Stanley alum and economist who served, or advised rather, President George W. Bush, and the youngest Fed governor ever. Warsh would succeed, of course, the current chair, Jerome Powell. His term ends in May. President Trump, as you might know, has lambasted Powell for months, calling him a, quote, moron. And it hasn't stopped there. Now, critics, because of all this, fear that the president's Fed pick would take away from the central bank's independence. Texas Republican Congressman Pete Sessions, member of the House Financial Services Committee. With us in a moment, Chris Steyerwalt here with what this could mean for pricing pains for everyday Americans. But first, over to our Kelly Meyer live at the White House. Hello, Kelly.
Yeah, hey there, Blake. So President Trump clearly wants a rate cut. He's been hammering that home and slamming the current Fed chair for not doing it. And his expectation is that his new pick will lower those rates. But there is a question of will he? Keven Warsh was seen as a hawk who favored higher interest rates. It was only recently that he began calling for lower rates. And today Trump was asked if he got a commitment from Warsh that he'll cut those rates. Listen to this.
I don't want to ask him that question. I think it's inappropriate, probably. It probably would be allowed, but I want to keep it nice and pure. But he certainly wants to cut rates.
Now, the current Fed chair, Jerome Powell, his term isn't up until May, and he's still under investigation for his handling, they say, of renovations at the central bank's headquarters here in Washington, D.C. Powell has said his investigation is politically motivated. And Republican Senator Thom Tillis says he won't vote to confirm Warsh, even though he believes Warsh is well qualified, saying, quote, "I will oppose the confirmation of any Federal Reserve nominee, including for the position of chairman, until the DOJ's inquiry into Chairman Powell is fully and transparently resolved." And today, Trump said he isn't concerned about the confirmation hearings going through. Blake.
Kelly Meyer, live for us over at 1600. Kelly, thank you. With us now, Congressman Pete Sessions, Republican from Texas. Congressman, nice to see you as always. Glad you're with us tonight. Two big stories in the news. You're there in a border state in Texas. I'll get to DHS in a moment, but first let me start there with the news on Keven Warsh. Any reservations at all that he'll be able to separate himself from the president?
No, I've got no real problems. I mean, the president has made sure that he takes full responsibility for the economy, for the things which are occurring. I think he's entitled to have not only a Fed chair that he has a relationship with, but perhaps more importantly, where they share some sort of view about where interest rates ought to be. We believe, I think our committee believes that interest rates are too high. We have a housing problem in this country, and we need to make sure that we keep our economy moving forward. I think just a good pick.
Here was Jay Powell the other day, and then I'll pick it up with you on the other side.
It just is that every advanced economy democracy in the world has come around to this common practice. It's just an institutional arrangement that has served the people well.
That was Powell on why there should be an independent Fed. Going forward, Congressman, should Keven Warsh listen to anything that Donald Trump has to say from here on out?
Well, I think the top line viewpoint is that he believes that the risk is not corresponding exactly the same as the interest rates. And if you're going to be the world leader in growing jobs and growing the economy and making sure that you move your economy forward with people to have housing and jobs, which is a stable environment right now, then we need to move that rate down. We need to have people come out of this winter with the spring where interest rates look better. And if it means it's going to be in May, bring it on.
All right. Obviously, Keven Warsh, if he gets confirmed, would step into the role there in May. Let me take you into your home state and back here to Washington as well, because I'm sure you're following what's going on with this DHS funding fight. The Senate's taking it up right now. It is likely to then get into your chamber here in the coming days, and it would involve only a 2-week funding measure for DHS, and that's when the negotiations would occur on any sort of reforms to DHS and ICE. Would you support that bill?
Well, certainly I could, but you see, we only know one side of this equation right now. We know what the Democrats are asking for. But I think correspondingly, every single American recognizes both sides needed to make some sort of accommodations to each other. I think it is wrong to have these ICE officers dogged and people coming and doing the things they're doing that are.
So what reforms are you willing to accept, Congressman? What reforms do you think need to take place?
I talked about this the other night on CNN, and what I said
tell
is
us here on NewsNation.
I think there needs to be a buffer My point is, we need to have a buffer to where the law enforcement is protected, as well people who have a right for their First Amendment. But that First Amendment does not mean that they can impede federal law enforcement on their job when they're doing this properly. And I think that there's a accommodation on both sides that could be something that I would support.
All right, we'll leave it there. Pete Sessions, Republican from Texas, as I mentioned, on the House Financial Services Committee as well when it relates to Jay Powell, by the way. And that conversation, Powell could stay on the board and vote on interest rates until January 2028. So he still could be a thorn potentially in the president's side. Congressman, thanks. We'll talk to you again soon. Joining us now here on The Hill, host of The Hill Sunday, Chris Steyerwalt, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. My man, how you doing?
And you know, I also work at a think tank because I'm wearing the sweater.
And
This is how you know.
And it is a perfect look on you. Let's start with DHS and the funding battle here. It was interesting to hear from Pete Sessions there, some sort of, okay, we can have some wiggle room, some accommodations. How much should Republicans give, and how hard should Democrats push? Sort of what's the line there right now this evening?
So what you're going to hear from Republicans is a lot of obeisance to the executive branch.
Okay.
What you're going to hear Republicans say is, we're okay with curbing the unpopular things that ICE is doing. But we don't want to limit the executive branch's authority. We don't want to tell the executive branch how to do it. And of course, Democrats are going to say, but that's your job. You're in Congress. That's what you're supposed to do. And it's just the inverse of what you get every time. The party that's in the majority, if they also have the White House, sucks up to executive power. Then you flip it around. So look, the political pressure for swing district Republicans to deliver some meaningful change here is real, right? People don't like the masked agents. They don't understand why persuadable voters, that 45% of the country that are independents, a lot of them don't understand why normal police officers have to wear body cameras, but these guys don't have to wear body cameras. So there are a lot of people who would like this, but think of Mike Johnson's situation.
Okay.
So Mike Johnson is going to, on Monday, have to say to Republicans, I need you to eat this one. You're not going to like it.
Republicans that you just heard from right there.
Right. You're not going to like it. I need you to eat this one. But then we'll work it out on the DHS funding piece over the next 2 weeks. How can Freedom Caucus Republicans, how could conservatives or right-wingers anyway say, yeah, we're fine with some curbs? Then does Johnson want the partial shutdown to occur, in which his choice will be between letting a partial shutdown occur or having a jailbreak where he's passing with more Democratic votes than Republican votes? I can't see that one.
On Keven Warsh, this economy right now, it is unique.
Yes.
Weird. It is a lot of things that you can throw into a blender. I'm looking at, Chris, for example, grocery prices up 0.7% in December. It might not sound like a lot, but when you run that many, many months over end, that's what Americans are feeling, and we all know what Americans say right now. It's not like Keven Warsh can come in and lower grocery prices, right? So what does this mean for the president?
So Keven Warsh is a sound money guy, and the reason that conservatives like him, and the reason that this is an appealing pick for the president to make with Republican senators, is that the Republican Party was traditionally a sound money party. They wanted a strong dollar. They wanted to fight inflation. They wanted to do that. Donald Trump wants the opposite, right?
Total opposite.
He wants a weak dollar, and he's okay with inflation if it comes with a lot of growth. And that's where he is, which is the opposite of most Republicans. What he probably thinks he has in Warsh is because Warsh's father-in-law is Ron Lauder, who is a fellow New York billionaire with Donald Trump, who has given generously to Donald Trump, who is his friend. Trump probably thinks that maybe this is somebody that he can get through in the Senate, but then will be amenable to the president's suggestions.
Certainly one way to put it. You got the best Sunday show in the biz. Who you got coming up?
Well, we are going to do a deep dive on what's going on down in Georgia with Tulsi Gabbard and all of this stuff. We're going to get into that. Oh, look, there they are.
Yep.
We've got Greg Murphy, Congressman from North Carolina, Republican, Julie Johnson, Democrat from Texas, swing district, interesting one. And we've got Jeff Duncan, the former Republican, who is now a Democrat, who is down in Georgia, and we're going to talk to him about that.
I hope you watch Chris's show. 10 a.m. Here on News Nation. As I always tell you, he's got the best one. Thank you, brother.
No promises on the sweater.
Appreciate it. All right, still to come. Decision time. President Trump confirms a direct warning to Iran as warships move into position. Plus, the new ad, this one right here, just might be the Democratic blueprint for the midterms.
We will not be intimidated. We will not be silenced. I will defend you with everything I have.
Start your engines. IndyCar racing into the nation's capital. We will give you the first look at this monumental race. I'm Blake Burman when you return in 4 minutes. President Trump reiterating today that Iran faces a choice: make a deal or potentially face the military might of the United States. The president announcing that Iran knows the deadline that he set. We turn now to our Robert Sherman. He is live for us abroad with the very latest. And Robert, this is starting to pick up on both sides.
Without question, Blake, the president saying that he wants a deal, and he wants a deal now when it comes to stopping the crackdown on demonstrators and backing Iran away from their nuclear ambitions. The new satellite images indicate that 2 of those nuclear sites that were hit by the U.S. last year during the 12 Days War, there's been some activity there, roofs being built over them to shield satellites away from seeing what the workers are doing underneath there. Meanwhile, Iran's national security chief in Moscow today, meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin. Remember, these are 2 allies that are known to trade weapons and drones with one another. While the Kremlin won't say exactly what they talked about here, they've tried to steer clear of this situation in Iran as much as possible. With this meeting here significant. And another thing to keep an eye on here, Blake, next week, starting Monday, Iran will begin what they describe as live fire drills in the Strait of Hormuz. That is a major trade artery, and it's also very close to where the U.S. Armada is right now. Blake?
Robert Sherman live for us abroad tonight. Robert, thank you. Meantime, a court ruling in Panama could turn into a big win for the United States. A court there blocking a company with ties to China from operating in the Panama Canal. Now, it means that China is out from running the port. Remember a year ago, President Trump's push, in his words, to take back the canal? It was labeled preposterous at the time by many critics, labeled preposterous by many Democrats. Well, the situation looking much different tonight. Of course, going the next step and having some form of U.S. control of the canal is far from a done deal. But the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, today celebrating the decision, describing it as encouraging. Want to bring in Mick Mulvaney, former chief of staff in Trump 1.0, with us now. Mick, hello, good evening. Trump got absolutely hammered on this a year ago, hammered, nonstop. And I look at what happened in Panama and thought to myself, wait a minute, did he just get what he wanted there, Mick?
Yeah, this is a fascinating little story, and thanks for bringing it up. This is a huge win for them. I mean, celebrating is the right word you just used to describe how Marco Rubio would think about this. Look, I know Greenland gets all the attention. We may talk about that in a second, but you can't do the Monroe Doctrine. You can't do the 21st century Dunroe Doctrine without the Panama Canal. Greenland's important, but this is absolutely critical. And Trump, from the very first day in office, wanted the Chinese out, and it looks like he's getting help to that very end from the Panamanian courts. So yeah, this is one of those big deals that not enough people are talking about.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to talk about it tonight. One of the reasons why. I hear now a lot about Greenland, nonstop, kind of like how we heard about the Panama Canal a year ago. Is this sort of what Trump wants to see happen a year from now with Greenland, in a sense? Like, is this how we're talking about this a year from now?
Yeah, whether or not you get here through the same sort of, I don't know enough about the court system in Panama or in Denmark for that reason, but this is the end result he wants, which is, if you listen to the verbiage, the language he's using about Greenland, go back and see that he said the exact same thing about the Panama Canal. We need it for national security. It's absolutely critical. We need to have it, et cetera. Almost the exact same words. You could pluck Greenland out and put Panama Canal in. So, yeah, this is the end result they want. Whether or not they get there by the same means in Greenland, this is where they want to be at the end of the day up there.
I'm telling you, not a lot of people talking about this, but I wanted to bring it to you tonight because it is big news in our backyard, something we talked a lot about a year ago. Yeah. And we're seeing some of it this evening. Mick Mulvaney, live from our Concord Public Bureau, with us tonight. Mick, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
By
Blake.
the way, China, second largest user of the Panama Canal, accounting for approximately 21% of its total cargo traffic. Consider that when we talk about the news out of that region this evening. All right. Still to come, protesters take to the streets once again today to protest federal immigration enforcement, while the Trump administration sweeps up a former news anchor in connection with a presence at a recent protest, the very latest. As we look at live pictures in Minneapolis, plus start your engines. The president signs off on an IndyCar race right here in D.C., so is it going to happen? 6:30 on the dot here in Washington, D.C. At bottom of the hour, some of the top stories we're looking at right now, and I want to give you a live look at the Senate floor. This is happening at this moment. They are voting on that package of bills to fund most of the government through September, only extending Homeland Security for 2 weeks. While Congress negotiates reforms to ICE. So when this passes, as it's expected, it then goes to the House. And the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, tonight is telling Republicans, get on back to town, come on back, because they are expecting that vote in the coming days. Of course, technically, there would be a government shutdown, as the deadline to fund the government is tonight at midnight. The partial shutdown coming the same day, of course, as our next star stations are reporting all across the country, including this here. This is Los Angeles. You can see a massive group of protesters taking to the streets. It's being called a day of action to protest ICE. Los Angeles, California, live at this moment, and this has been the scene across many parts of the United States tonight. We continue to cover. Meantime, from our affiliate WNCT, Greenville, North Carolina. Thousands of people in the Carolinas and Virginia still without power, entering their 6th day without power amid frigid temperatures and preparing to be hit with yet another winter storm. Forecasters expect heavy snow in the southeast and frigid temperatures from Nashville to the East Coast as well. Back out to L.A. KTLA, our next star station there, reporting on the former CNN anchor Don Lemon. He was just released. This is the scene moments ago. Just released from custody after appearing in court on several charges. The government says he violated federal law during a protest that disrupted a church service in Minnesota earlier this month. Lemon says he was reporting, not participating in the protest. And his lawyer calls the arrest an unprecedented blow to First Amendment rights. He is expected back in court early next month. New York today. We learn that Luigi Mangione, the man accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, will not face the death penalty. The federal judge acknowledging that her ruling might seem, quote, tortured and strange, but insisted she is bound by a Supreme Court precedent. Our Jessica Cartalia with the news tonight out of New York. Jessica, so many wondering how this is the case, but this is the latest in the Mangione episode.
Yeah, exactly, Blake. This is the very latest. Prosecutors have until the end of next month to appeal that ruling, but right now, a huge win for the defense. The federal judge, however, did deny the request that they throw out the backpack and the evidence inside of it when those officers arrested Mangione in Altoona, Pennsylvania. That backpack contained a manifesto and a gun tying him to the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson back in December of 2024. He has pleaded not guilty to both state and federal charges. That federal trial now could start as soon as October, with jury selection beginning in September. His supporters, Blake, who were waiting outside of the courtroom at the time, cheered when they heard the news that the death penalty was now off the table.
Our Jessica Cartalia live for us tonight on the streets of New York. Jessica, thank you. Want to bring in Shan Wu, criminal defense lawyer, former federal prosecutor. Shan, nice to see you as always. Thanks for being with us on a Friday night.
Sure.
There's a couple big stories to get to. Let's stay there in New York. Put yourself in the judge's shoes here. Did the judge make the right decision here, removing the death penalty?
I think so. I haven't had a chance to read the judge's reasoning there yet. I understand it's sort of complicated. I think what strikes me about this is just how vehement the prosecutors are in that they want to appeal this kind of decision. Usually in a criminal trial, you're not going to have appeals on things which aren't substantive as to the merits. For example, let's say the judge had tossed out the evidence. That's something that typically does go up on appeal before the trial starts. Something like this where he's not eligible for the death penalty, it's unusual to me that they're challenging so much. First of all, it's very rare that DOJ seeks a death penalty. There's quite a bunch of hoops you have to jump through to begin with. So I'll be very interested to see what the arguments are.
So is this the end? Is this the end of the death penalty possibility, or could it somehow come back?
Well, they're saying they're going to appeal it, so I suppose it could come back. But generally speaking, it's so unusual to see them so vehemently pursuing it. And I have to say that one thing that strikes me about them losing it at this point is that it's possible that this DOJ is not as careful or well organized as some other ones. When I was counsel to the Attorney General, there was a whole series of steps you had to go through to even get permission to seek the penalty. And usually you had the Solicitor General's office weighing in to make sure you had the legal foundation rock solid. So that might have been missing here.
As an attorney, first off, in the United States of America, you are innocent until proven guilty. We all know that. As an attorney, you are bound to defend your client and give him or her the best possible defense. The attorney for Luigi Mangione, Shan, said this today. I want to play it, and then I want to get your reaction on the other side.
Thank all the people who come out and stand here in the cold, and the people who can't come here, all the supporters. We get your letters, we get your emails, and we really appreciate all the support.
Man, Shan, I got to imagine there's a lot of people watching this and going, thanking the supporters. Should the attorney be going down that lane?
Okay, full disclosure, Karen's a friend of mine, and I have a lot of admiration for her skill.
Okay.
So I would say here, I mean, there's no particularly wrong answer for her to thank the supporters. I think from a strategic point of view, and I have no inside information on this, I'm just guessing. From a strategic point of view, the more they sort of drum up this public support, the public sentiment, viewing him as kind of like a Robin Hood and, outlaw on the side of justice, the better chance they have of putting that into the minds of whoever is eventually going to be on that jury pool. So I really think that's what the PR campaign is going for here.
Okay. Don Lemon, he just spoke after being released outside of that federal courtroom. We reported on what the attorneys say and Don Lemon just spoke, and the government has its case. It's out. That was the scene moments ago. The magistrate judge didn't pursue this path. Donald Trump's Justice Department did. How do you think this ends?
I think it's an extraordinarily weak case, holding aside the entire repercussions of the idea of going after a journalist. If we just focus on the legal merits, I've read that indictment, and it's very, very thin, if not non-existent, as to tying Don Lemon into the sort of criminal act of interference. I mean, it's quite clear, even in the indictment, that he's going there to cover it as a journalist. And of course, we've all seen the videos where he keeps talking about that. So I don't think it's a very strong case at all. And I'd be very, very surprised if they make it to a jury trial. But certainly, I think it's highly unlikely a jury would ever convict him on these facts.
Shan Wu, got to leave it there. Hope you enjoyed the weekend. Thanks for the perspective. Appreciate it. I want to take you back up right now to Capitol Hill, because we've been talking about this Senate vote to avert a government shutdown. Live look on the Senate floor. It just passed seconds ago. So what does that mean? It means it now heads on over to the House of Representatives. And this bill funds the government, except only the Department of Homeland Security, for 2 weeks. And what this is setting up is a major battle in the upcoming weeks, likely, between Democrats and Republicans. What reforms might be coming to DHS? What reforms might come to ICE? How far are Democrats going to push? How much are Republicans going to give? All the dynamics, or some of them, I should say, as we continue to keep our eyes on the Senate. We'll get into it other side of the break when you return here on The Hill. See you then.
Batya Ungar Sargon at her new time, 7/6 Central.
Who and what are you fighting for?
Batya, I like that framework.
I'm so proud of you, by the way. You're like my favorite person of 2025.
Batya at her new time, Saturdays on News Nation.
I was elected on law and order. We did a great job. We had the National Guard. We have soldiers. We have people that nobody's going to mess with.
President Trump, Oval Office today, touting his administration's immigration record. But as he goes back to what he campaigned on, Democrats already using recent ICE raids in their own campaigns. For example, here's the latest ad from Governor Janet Mills in Maine, who's running for Senate there.
We will not be intimidated. We will not be silenced. I will defend you with everything I have. If you seek to harm Maine people, you will have to go through me first.
Joining me now, full panel, Laura Weiss, congressional reporter for Punchbowl News. Aaron McGuire is a Republican strategist, and Dan Cannonen, former Battleground States Director for both the Biden and Harris campaigns. Hello to you all. Thanks for being here. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Is that a preview of what we're getting steamrolling into the midterms from both sides?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of the conversation around immigration and around ICE right now. And a sign of that, I was just over at the Capitol where they're voting on the funding package in the Senate, and there was an amendment vote from Senator Bernie Sanders. It didn't pass, but it was on taking away ICE funding and putting it toward Medicaid. Senator Collins, Senator Murkowski, both voted for that. And so I think that really shows the political position that Republicans are in right now, and how Democrats are really trying to lean onto this moment, really feel that their base expects them to fight the Trump administration right now, and they're having some success doing that right now.
Does that play from Mills? Does that play from Trump? We'll go ladies first here. What did you make of what you just saw there today?
Well, one, I think to your point about Susan Collins here in Maine, you saw her vote against that ICE funding. To your point here, that's going to be the Janet Mills ad. Yeah, you're going to probably see that. I think that's probably fair for what you might see from a few Democrats. But that race itself specifically will be much more fraught than that national style messaging that you're seeing from them. Obviously, all the polling is indicating that this is a great base movement for Democrats, but it's pulling up moderates and independents as well. And you will see a message focus. Now, let's all remember and take a deep breath right now. It is February of 2026. Yep. Will immigration continue to be a large part of the conversation? Absolutely. I'm sure it's a cornerstone of Trump and his entire fervor as a politician since 2015. However, the tone, tenor, and message of the ads will likely evolve as we get closer to Election Day, and what the touch point of immigration success or defeat looks like will evolve as we get closer to Election Day.
Yeah, Fox out today, 59% disapproval with ICE tactics, too aggressive, plus 10 from the same question in June or July, I think. So the politics moving really away from ICE and from the president on that point. I think the Mills ad was interesting because it wasn't really just about ICE. I mean, you remember the moment with her in the White House and in the state dining room, or the Lincoln, or not the Lincoln, in the White House proper, in the East Room, I think it was, when Trump, did the whole we'll sue you thing, and she fought back. I think Mainers want someone who's kind of a battle axe against the president, and the Collins dig from Democrats at least always is you roll over every time, right? So I think part of what you saw there was ICE, sure, but more trying to create a brand about the kind of fighter that Maine's going to have. But to the point of the politics, I mean, Greg Abbott is looking for changes in ICE. You see Tillis, you see Murkowski, as you said. There's a moment here. How this plays out into the midterms, I agree with you, uncertain, but it's a moment.
That was the see you in court with, I think that's the trans stuff. Yeah, that's right. Over there with that scene at the White House. Tim Walz, The Atlantic. Tim Walz fears a Fort Sumter moment in Minnesota. I mean, is this Fort Sumter? It's a physical assault. It's an armed force that's assaulting. That's killing my constituents, my citizens. President Trump asked about it today.
Do you agree with that characterization? Do you feel like there's a civil war brewing?
The governor said that? Well, does he know what Fort Sumter was, or do you think somebody wrote it out for him?
So much for the we had nice phone calls. All that played out in the White House, today.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. This can change very quickly. I think, what we're seeing now is this is going to be the big thing on Capitol Hill over the next 2 weeks. The funding deal that they just struck means that the next 2 weeks are going to be these frenzied negotiations about reforms to ICE. That's what Democrats demanded. That's what they wanted. They're going to be trying to negotiate with the White House on that. And the White House came to the table, but it's not clear where this is going to go. And we're already seeing conservative Republicans pushing back on that.
Why should we believe, Dan, that that both sides could come together on this when you have Civil War references being dropped?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't go quite there. But I mean, if you look at the totality of what Wallace has been saying or what Attorney General Keith Ellison has been saying, they've been very measured in saying, if you want to protest, if you want to observe, please do that, but do it peacefully. Don't obstruct, don't impede, certainly don't be violent. That's been their consistent messaging all along. And I want to note, yesterday, I think when Homan did his press conference, earlier in the day, he met with the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, who had to prosecute Derek Chauvin in the George Floyd case, by the way, and had to deal with that situation and put that to rest, I think, very effectively. And the tone from Ellison and Homan, I think, was better on both parts, looking for ways to sort of de-escalate and allow enforcement activities to happen without the kind of tactics we've been seeing. But what's interesting to me about that is that you've got the funding battle, which will loom after tonight, in a few weeks of this. Happening in real time is ICE going to cooperate in a way that feels appropriate to Democrats? And so it's happening while they're negotiating. I think what happens in Minneapolis is going to spill over to the Capitol.
How, to Dan's point and what Laura's been talking about, you now have Mike Johnson telling House Republicans, get back.
Yeah.
Get back here. The margins are thin. Are House Republicans going to support this idea of a 2-week, let's give a 2-week runway and have a conversation about the future of DHS and ICE?
I certainly hope so. There's no reason not to, because if they say no, then they are the ones who shut it down, right? If they are the ones who come back, even though that, like, obviously...
You're comfortable saying that of your own party?
Why would I lie? Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If they are the ones who come back and say ultimately that they are the ones in the majority, and I understand in the Senate that those numbers are different, right? When we were talking about the shutdown in the Senate and trying to reopen the government, those are different numbers. Like, we'll all play fair here. But I will say that the people who can keep the government open right now for the next 2 weeks to make sure we are fully open and operating, and we can make sure that what's happening in Minnesota is done in a way that for the conversations that the president has been leading and negotiating with Ellison, with Fry, with Walz, even as those continue in the public sphere as well, and you hear that battling, this is very important. So taking that leverage away from President Trump would be on House Republicans. He has a moment right now to deliver for these negotiations, to not see another battle, another kick the can down the road. So yes, House Republicans need to show up. And I will finish with this. Whenever people have doubted Mike Johnson as Speaker, they've come up on the wrong side of that. He's been able to deliver time and again his votes, his majority, his ability to keep the government open and functioning. So I don't bet against Mike Johnson on this.
Speaking of bet, can I show you the betting markets real quick of what's going on here? The betting markets right now on how long the government will be shut down. 1 day, 90%, 3 days, 88%, a week, 15%. 30 days, 4%. Little Friday night fun here. Laura, how long does this last?
So, yeah, House is planning to vote on this Monday. It all comes down to that.
It all comes down to that? How long does this last?
I say 3 days. We're back on Monday.
How long?
Monday.
Monday. All right, so you both are in that zone. All three of you are in that zone. And then, speaking of, it's Monday, right? Punxsutawney Phil. This is what's going on right now with, will he see his shadow or not? Dan?
You know, I noticed that Jefferson County is about a 78% Trump county, and Punxsutawney Phil goes for his shadow 84% of the time, which is wrong most of the time. They're wrong on Trump. They're wrong on the shadow. He will see it.
Does he see his shadow?
Well, I mean, is Bill de Blasio around? Because he's a known groundhog murderer. I don't know if everybody remembers the time he killed that groundhog. So let's all remember, as long as Bill de Blasio's not involved, I think we're going to have a short winter.
I'm going to say, no, hopefully we got a lot of snow here on the East Coast.
It's
I don't know if we can handle more.
By the way, they're going to be watching this at WTAJ. That's Altoona, PA, our next star station there with Punxsutawney Phil, just a few days out. Stay warm this weekend.
Yes.
It's warm here. Appreciate you. Still to come, other side of the break, IndyCar is officially coming to the nation's capital. And tonight, we're getting our first look. We're going to show it to you.
And it's quite simple. History.
All right, so how about this? For all of you who think that Capitol Hill is just a nonstop cycle of nonsense and getting nothing done, a lot of people might feel like you. Democrats and Republicans going in perpetual cycles of ineptitude. Well, we have news for you tonight because now it is in the works for IndyCar to come to Washington.
3, 2, 1.
That right there, of course, AI generated coming out from the White House today. You have to admit, when it's not politicians going in circles, but rather the most advanced autos in the world traveling at 200 miles per hour past the White House and the Lincoln Memorial. That is a pretty cool concept. The White House releasing this AI-generated mock-up today after President Trump signed an executive order that would allow the race, or at least call for the race, to come here to Washington, D.C.
This is going to have a lot of people. I won't even say how many people, because I think it can set a record for racing. It's going to be very, very important. We're celebrating greatness with American motor racing. That's going to be the name of the event.
Now, this will coincide, of course, with the country's 250th birthday party this summer. The festivities are scheduled to take place from August 21st to August 23rd, with the race on August 23rd. And normally, you would think that they would have to get Congress involved here, because you can't have advertising on the Capitol grounds. One of the things that's awesome about this town, one of the many things, is that you don't see the advertising here. It's beautiful. But because of that executive order from the president, the thinking is maybe they are able to get around Congress and just bring that race here to Washington. If it happens, late August, we'll see you here. I thank you so much for watching us tonight here on The Hill. We leave you with a live look. At the Senate floor, they just passed that package to send the government funding bill over to the House. But the big story that we'll be following next week: can the House get it done? Will Republicans stick together? We'll see you then. But until then, Elizabeth Vargas Reports coming up next. I'm Blake Burman. Have a good one.